Have you ever found yourself feeling more tired after spending time with certain people? Like your energy is just gone? Maybe it's after a phone call, a visit, or even a favor you agreed to without really wanting to. You hang up, walk away, or sit down and think, why do I always end up feeling drained? If you've ever had that feeling deep in your gut that something just isn't right, this video is for you. Because the truth is, there's a fine line between being helpful and being taken advantage of. And too often, kind-hearted, generous people, especially those of us over 60, get stuck on the wrong side of that line. We give, we compromise, we listen, we show up. And somewhere along the way, we forget to ask whether we're getting anything in return. Let me tell you something. Kindness is a beautiful thing, but it should never cost you your peace of mind, your self-worth, or your energy. If you're always giving and rarely receiving, it's time to pause. Because your time is precious. Your energy is valuable. And your heart? It deserves to be cared for, not used. So today, we're going to talk about something that isn't easy, but it's necessary. We're going to talk about how to stop letting people use you. And more importantly, how to start honoring the amazing person you are. Let's start with something simple, but powerful. Recognizing when you're being used. Now, this can be tricky, because people who take advantage of others don't always do it in obvious ways. Sometimes it's the child who only calls when they need money, or the neighbor who just needs a little help, but somehow turns your whole week upside down. It could be a friend who disappears when you're going through something, but suddenly shows up when they need support. It doesn't always look like someone holding out their hand. Sometimes it looks like guilt, like feeling obligated, like thinking, well, if I don't help, who will? That's not generosity. That's pressure. And pressure isn't love. You'll know you're being used when you start to feel resentful. When you feel like your kindness is being expected, not appreciated. When thank you starts to disappear and can you becomes a daily phrase. It builds slowly, one small request at a time, until suddenly you realize you've been giving pieces of yourself away and nobody's handing anything back. That's the first sign. That little voice inside you saying, something doesn't feel right. Listen to it. It's not wrong. Now, once you've opened your eyes to that pattern, the next step is just as important. Remembering your worth. You've lived a life full of experiences, some joyful, some painful, some hard-earned. You've raised families, built careers, made sacrifices, and given so much of yourself to others. But sometimes, in all that giving, you forget that you are valuable, not because of what you do for people, but because of who you are. You deserve respect. You deserve kindness. You deserve relationships where love goes both ways. And yet, so many seniors, maybe even you, fall into the trap of thinking, well, I'm old now. I'm supposed to be the one who helps. I don't want to be a burden. But helping others shouldn't come at the cost of your well-being. And asking for respect, for rest, for peace, that doesn't make you a burden. That makes you human. Think about this. If someone only sees you for what you can give them, whether it's money, time, or emotional support, do they really see you? Or just what you can do for them? That's a hard question, but it's one worth asking. Because the moment you realize your value, you start to see the difference between kindness and self-neglect. You start to notice who checks in on you. Not just when they need something, but when you're quiet. You begin to understand that your worth isn't measured by how often you say yes. Sometimes your worth is in the no you give to protect your peace. And that brings us to something that can change your life if you let it. Learning how to set boundaries. Now, for many of us, boundaries are a foreign concept. Maybe you were raised to believe that saying no is rude. that putting yourself first is selfish, that your role is to serve, to sacrifice, to always be available. But let me ask you this. When was the last time someone showed up for you the way you show up for them? Setting a boundary isn't about building walls or cutting people off. It's about protecting your space, your time, your energy, your heart. It's saying, I matter too. Maybe that means not answering the phone during your rest time. Maybe it means telling your adult child, I can't lend money right now. Maybe it's as simple as saying, I'm not up for company today, but I'd love to talk tomorrow. At first, people might be surprised, especially if they've grown used to you always saying yes. They might push back. They might ask why you're changing. And that's okay, because boundaries are not for them. They're for you. And here's the thing. People who truly care about you, who respect you, won't mind the boundaries. In fact, they'll honor them. They'll understand that your time is yours, that your energy isn't limitless, that love doesn't mean access on demand. And those who don't like your boundaries, they might fade away. But ask yourself, if someone walks out of your life because you finally said no, were they really there for you to begin with? This is your time, your season of life. You don't need to spend it walking on eggshells or bending over backward to make everyone else comfortable while you're uncomfortable. You've earned peace. You've earned dignity. You've earned the right to choose how you spend your days and who you spend them with. So if you're watching this and nodding your head, if something deep inside you is saying, yes, this is what I needed to hear, then let this be your sign. You're not alone, and you're not wrong for wanting more. You've spent a lifetime giving. Now it's your turn to receive. Respect, love, balance, rest. And it all starts with that one moment, right now, when you decide to honor yourself. So now that you've begun to recognize your own worth and started practicing boundaries, something else might begin to surface, and it can be one of the most difficult realizations we face. Some of the relationships in your life might not be healthy. In fact, some might be toxic. And I know, that word sounds strong, but it's real. Toxic relationships aren't always loud or obvious. Sometimes they're wrapped in years of familiarity. Sometimes they're hidden under layers of guilt, obligation, or history. But you'll feel it. You'll feel it when every conversation leaves you anxious or tired. When someone makes you question yourself or uses your love against you. You'll feel it when you give, and still, it's never enough. Some people are like sponges. They soak up your time, your kindness, your patience, until you're left dry. They might guilt trip you, twist your words, or always seem to turn the focus back to their problems, their needs, their wants. And the moment you try to speak up or create space, suddenly you're the problem. It's a cycle, one that can go on for years, unless you choose to break it. Now, I want to say something clearly. You don't owe anyone your energy just because you've known them a long time. You don't owe someone access to your heart simply because they're family. Blood may be thicker than water, but respect is thicker than both. You're allowed to walk away from people who hurt you, who drain you, who only show up when they need something. It might feel unfamiliar at first, even painful. Letting go always carries a weight. But sometimes, letting go of someone is exactly how you begin to lift yourself back up. And if you're wondering, how do I even begin to let go? It doesn't always mean slamming the door shut. Sometimes it just means stepping back, creating distance, responding less, saying no more, being intentional about how much you give and to whom. Because once you stop watering a dead plant, you can start nourishing something new, something healthy. But here's something even more powerful than cutting off toxic relationships. It's something deeper, something foundational. It's the root of all healing, of all peace. and that's self-love. You see, when you truly love yourself, deeply, honestly, you stop tolerating disrespect. You stop explaining yourself to people who only want to argue. You stop bending to fit into spaces that were never built for you. Self-love isn't just about bubble baths and positive affirmations. It's about having your own back. It's about knowing your value so clearly that you refuse to settle for less than kindness, honesty, and respect. And let me tell you something that too many people forget. Self-love doesn't expire with age. In fact, it gets stronger, because with every passing year, you gain more wisdom, more clarity, more reason to protect your peace and live on your own terms. When you love yourself, you stop seeking approval from people who never had your best interests at heart. You stop over-explaining your choices. You stop apologizing for having needs, for setting boundaries, for being unavailable sometimes. You realize that being kind doesn't mean being available 24/7. That loving others starts with loving yourself first. And here's something beautiful. The moment you begin to truly love yourself is also the moment the right people begin to appear in your life. Not the ones who take, but the ones who give, who listen, who care, who see you, not for what you can do for them, but for who you are. Now, I know what you might be thinking. I've spent so long putting others first. Is it too late to change? Absolutely not. In fact, the older we get, the more important it is to protect our energy. Because your time is no longer a resource to be spent recklessly. It's sacred, and you get to choose how to spend it. That might mean making some hard choices. Letting go of people you once loved, saying goodbye to relationships that no longer lift you up. And that's okay. Because letting go isn't just about loss, it's about creating space for something better. You see, peace isn't found in people-pleasing. It's found in alignment, in authenticity, in waking up each day knowing you're not sacrificing your happiness to make someone else comfortable. It's found in the quiet moments, in being alone and still feeling whole, in saying no and not feeling guilty, in saying yes to yourself. Letting go might mean grieving. Yes, even grieving relationships with people who are still alive. That's real. It's valid. But what you gain in return is priceless. Your power, your energy, your peace of mind. And when the space is clear, when the noise is gone, that's when the healthy relationships begin to grow. Think of a garden. You can't plant new flowers if the soil is full of weeds. But once you clear out the overgrowth, water the ground, and give it time, beauty returns. That's what happens in your life too. When you stop giving all your energy to people who use you, you begin to attract people who lift you. People who celebrate your wins, not envy them. People who support your boundaries, not push past them. People who check in because they care, not because they want something. And guess what? Those relationships might be with people you least expect. A neighbor who always waves when you walk by. A new friend at your book club. Even an old acquaintance who suddenly sees you in a new light, stronger, more confident, more at peace. The point is this: when you love yourself, set boundaries, and walk away from toxic dynamics, you don't become lonely. You become free. And with that freedom comes a kind of joy that can't be faked. A quiet confidence that doesn't need applause. A peace that lets you sleep well at night. Because you know you're living your life with intention. Not out of guilt, not out of fear, but from a place of clarity, strength, and self-respect. You deserve that kind of life. Not someday. Not if other people agree. Now. So take a breath. Let that truth settle in. You are not here to be used. You are not here to be drained, dismissed, or manipulated. You are here to live, to laugh, to love yourself first and others who truly deserve that love second. Because life after 60 isn't a time to shrink. It's a time to rise, to reclaim your space, to protect your joy, to walk boldly, gently, and freely into the years ahead, with your head high and your heart full. There's something truly powerful about watching your life begin to shift, watching your energy come back, your peace return, and your confidence begin to rebuild. When you start letting go of the people who've used you, something magical happens. You come back home to yourself. And from that place, you begin to see with new eyes. You start to notice the people who genuinely care, not for what you can give them, but for how they feel around you. You spot kindness in places you'd never thought to look. You find connection not in obligation but in honesty. You begin to build something real, healthy relationships. Healthy relationships aren't perfect. They don't mean you'll never disagree or feel frustrated. But they do mean you're safe. They mean your voice is heard. Your time is valued. Your limits are respected. There's no guessing game, no silent guilt trips, no emotional gymnastics. In healthy relationships, you're not the only one showing up. You're not carrying all the weight. You're not afraid to be yourself. Instead, you feel lighter, freer, and maybe even a little more alive. It might start small. A friend who brings you soup when you're under the weather. A neighbor who notices when you haven't been out for your morning walk and checks in. A conversation that leaves you feeling energized instead of exhausted. These are signs that you're stepping into a new season, one where people give back. And here's something else. Healthy relationships don't just happen with other people. One of the most important ones you'll ever build is the one you have with yourself. Because the more you love and honor yourself, the more your life naturally begins to filter out the people who don't. You stop chasing approval. You stop explaining your value. You stop feeling guilty for choosing rest, saying no, or protecting your time. You start trusting your gut, listening to that quiet wisdom that lives inside you. And you realize, maybe for the first time in a long time, that you are enough, just as you are. No proving, no fixing, no overextending. From that place of strength, it becomes easier to recognize when something doesn't feel right. You begin to trust that uneasy feeling rather than brushing it off. You know that your peace isn't up for negotiation, and you're no longer afraid to walk away when something or someone steals it. That's not selfish. That's called self-respect. And as you stand more firmly in that truth, your world begins to change. People start treating you differently, not because they've changed, but because you have. Because you've drawn a line and said, "This is where I stop giving to people who only take." And maybe for the first time in a long time, you feel powerful. Not in a loud or forceful way, but in a calm, quiet, steady way. The kind of power that comes from knowing who you are and what you deserve. You stop tolerating the bare minimum. You stop chasing after people who only show up when it's convenient for them. You stop answering calls that you know will drain you. You start choosing differently. Who you spend your time with, what you say yes to, what you allow into your space. Because now you know something deep in your bones. You are not here to be used. You are not here to be a backup plan, a free therapist, or a silent supporter in someone else's drama. You are here to live your life. A life that feels calm, not chaotic. A life where your days are spent doing what you love, with people who love you back. A life where your boundaries are clear, your joy is protected, and your heart is honored. And let's talk about joy for a moment. Because that's something we don't talk about enough, especially as we get older. Joy is not just for the young. It's not something that ends at retirement or fades with age. In fact, the older you get, the more you deserve joy. Joy that isn't tied to someone else's needs. Joy that bubbles up from within. Joy that comes from peace, from freedom, from surrounding yourself with love that doesn't come with strings attached. It's okay to want joy. It's okay to chase peace. It's okay to start fresh, even at 60, 70, 80, and beyond. Your story isn't over. And every single day you choose yourself is a day you take back your life. So if you're sitting here watching this, nodding along, maybe even tearing up a little, please hear this. You are not alone. So many others have been where you are, feeling unseen, unheard, used, tired, but you don't have to stay there. You can begin today to shift, to speak up, to say no, to let go, to rest, to protect your peace like the treasure it is. And no, it won't always be easy. Change never is. You might feel lonely at first. You might second-guess yourself. You might wonder, did I do the right thing by walking away? But stay the course. Trust yourself. Keep choosing what feels right, not what others expect from you. Because the more you do, the more you'll start to feel that light come back. That strength. That smile that reaches your eyes again. That sense of self that maybe got lost along the way. It's not too late to reclaim your power. It's never too late to choose peace. And it's absolutely not too late to demand better, not from others, but for yourself. So take this as your permission slip. You don't have to be the fixer, the helper, the one who always says yes. You can be the protector of your own soul. You can be the architect of your peace. You can be the elder who leads by example, not through endless sacrifice, but through self-respect, courage, and grace. And if no one's told you this in a while, let me be the one to say it. You are worthy. You are enough. You are deeply, powerfully, beautifully valuable. Now go live like it. If this message spoke to you today, I want to invite you to leave a comment below. Share your story, your thoughts, or even just a simple, "Yes, I needed this." Because you never know who else is reading, who else needs to know they're not the only one. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. It helps this message reach more people just like you. Hit the subscribe button to stay connected with Strong Elderly Life, where we talk about healing, strength, independence, and all the ways you can keep thriving at every age. Here's to living your best, most peaceful, most empowered life, starting now. You deserve it. You always have. And don't let anyone ever use you again.